It's tough when you get that. I remember the emotions that I did. Sweetie, we're going to have to move out of town if I get beat. This is the community saying they hate me. So that's one of the thoughts.
Okay. Wow, that's extreme.
But that is very motivating. Right?
Welcome to another episode of Real Folk Podcast in the Pine Belt. We are trying to find good, positive stories instead of the average, Mississippi's terrible, all that stuff. We're not going to focus on it. And we've been doing good. I want to thank everybody for your support. It's been huge. Everyone seemed to really enjoy the last three guests that we have, and I think we're going to enjoy this guest a lot as well. All right.
Don't put yourself out there that far now.
No,
let's get into this first.
All right.
Let's see.
So we are hearing the voice of Mayor Tony of Petal. How are you doing, sir?
Fantastic.
You good?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
I
felt a lot of hustle.
What were you just doing? Like, you came in and you were like talking about something. Like, I feel like mayors are busy all the time sometimes. What?
You can be.
Okay.
You can work as hard as you know. What is it? Whatever you put into it is what you can get out of it.
Okay. Yeah.
I have felt like we swore in July 1. I have felt like we're 2 scores down and it's in the fourth quarter.
Really?
And I feel like if there's a point where I say, man, we've really got this thing whipped now. Mm-hmm. That's not a good place to be. Then you're not hustling. Then you're not getting things taken care of.
Okay.
But there's a lot of moving parts in your municipal government. There's a lot of messaging and communication. I think this is part of it. I appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, yeah,
we
enjoy
part of it. And I said when I ran last year that the city of Petal has a story to tell, and I'm going to go to anybody that will take 5 minutes and listen to it. So I've gone up and seen folks up in Jackson. I've gone dealt with our federal folks. Try to deal with anybody that'll sit down for 5 seconds and let us tell you the story of Petal.
Okay.
And I think it's a great story. It is an up-and-coming story. We haven't been a town for very long. 1974 is when we actually became a town.
Okay.
I'm only the 7th mayor. I say that around Mayor Barker, and he's like,
wow.
I'm the 40th, just a ton. I'm like, wait, okay, I'm only the 7th. Okay.
The 7th mayor.
Don't screw this up, There haven't been, I'm being compared to 6 others, and we've had some fantastic folks that have come through. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I saw one of them earlier today, Mayor Jack Gay. He served for 12 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And he did a great job. So I always appreciate the wisdom of those that have come before us.
Okay, so what made you want to get into politics, period? Because, you talk about how a lot of people come from just different, walks of the aisle, which I think was the point. You can have anyone come in and serve their, town, state, country, whatever. And so I'm always interested to figure out, like, what made you say, yeah, I want to do that.
It was unusual, and I had an insurance agency, so So I started that in around 2001, 2002. Mm-hmm. So around 2009, a group had come through before myself, and there was some turnover. There were some things going on that I didn't think that were very beneficial to the city.
Okay.
A lot of it was on the spending side. Some of the stuff we've inherited. I always say you walk in the shoes of those that have come before you.
Yeah.
So as the groups before me have left problems, we're going to leave the next group problems. So I live by the idea of let's make it better. Let's move the needle. We're not going to solve all the problems. I had mentioned earlier, just talking about sewer, we're going to get millions of dollars from federal sources and state sources to throw at our sewer problem. If I had $20 million, I've got a place for it in our sewer.
Okay.
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And we're a growing city, so we've got a building capacity to our system.
Okay.
But from actually, it's an incredible journey, and I take it that my experience, I always think it's not unique compared to the mindset of someone going through and saying, okay, I would like to run, or I'm very political, and I was very politically minded. I always tell the story in the late 90s, if there was a State of the Union, I could have probably named off Democrat or Republican, named off who they were shining the camera on.
Okay. How about in high school? Were you political?
Really? I probably listened to talk radio earlier than most people did.
Were you considered a nerd?
I did not run for any of the class presidencies or something like that. You would have thought. But so you go through that process, and then finally you say, okay, well, Vincent, why don't you run? I think you'd be good at that. That keeps me from having to run. I can live my life over here as an insurance agency. one day you just cross the line, and you go in, you fill out the paperwork. Me deciding to run for mayor was a lot easier decision, being that I had been an alderman for 12 years. So it makes it a lot easier.
So talk about like the role of the alderman, because I know a lot of people, the mayor, the senator, but alderman is one of those things that people don't really know that much about. So talk about this.
When I first came on board in 2009, there were 5 aldermen and the mayor. We've got a mayor alderman set up compared to, say, Hattiesburg, who has a mayor council set up. There are some different rules that go on with both of those setups. The 2010 census pushed us over 10,000 in population. State law required us to go in and add 2 more aldermen.
All right.
So they have a huge role to play. They're the eyes and ears out there. They're sometimes the first contact with the residents out there, and this board's been very active as far as just participating, just showing up to ribbon cuttings, being in Christmas parade, homecoming parade, and I really like that. I think somebody even asked why I was going to so many. You call them rubber chicken dinners. That little setup they give you to these little speaking engagements all the time. The chicken's actually better than that, but that's the phrase that it gets terminated. The term that they use. But, anyway, you go to them and they, well, why are you doing that, Tony? And I just, where else would I be? I feel like my job is to be in places like this, talking to folks and putting out the brand of Petal as much as I possibly can.
Do you find that it's easier to deal with, let's say, the sewer system and stuff than it is to talk to people sometimes? Because I hear, you're either good, there are very rare people that are good at everything.
Yeah.
So is that...
I had in this group, there's 7 aldermen, 3 of, I call them the old guys, and it just means that they were on the previous board. And then we've got 4 new guys, and then I'm in a new position myself. You get to where you talk to folks a lot, and you do, but there's times you want to go sit in the corner and just kind of stare out and think. It's like, no,
I got to tell you something, Mayor. Something's not going wrong.
You always get that. And you hear horror stories about people at church getting cornered, and I hear that a lot. I really haven't had that experience.
Not yet.
People notice, and that's probably the biggest surprise of being mayor.
Okay.
And I tell the story. Hey, I thought I was pretty cool as alderman.
Yeah.
But I could go shopping at Walmart. Now, not so much.
Okay, so there is a difference there.
There is.
Okay.
There's a difference, I think, in the public's eye. That they think this is a bigger deal. Even though the aldermen approve the budgets, they approve I get to meet cool people.
Yeah. But the aldermen have a lot of power as to what's going on.
They do, and we've got a great group in there, and they've really put their hand to the plow, so to speak. And that's really a benefit. It takes a lot off of us. We're a smaller city. Our budget, we're a lot of rooftops, so we've got to be very efficient in how we handle things.
Yeah.
Even now, knowing we were going into this period, I talked to the previous mayor about this, and we kind of laughed because we had so many tight budgets. Then there was a little blip where we had a little money, and we kind of made a few bad steps, and then we were right back into having some tight money. We knew the financial situation was going to get better.
Okay.
And some of our debt was going to, and you saw that in the last couple meetings. We were able to move some money around, pay off some debt, be more fiscally responsible. Broke.
That's very important.
Broke is not a good place to be. So I thought that was important. That's been fun for us.
Okay, so you talked about or you mentioned the previous mayor. So going back to that time, which was a very I guess. A loud time in the city. It kind of put Petal kind of on the map in maybe not so good of a way, in a horrible way. Okay, so when you come in, how do you take that and sort of change the perception of the place that you're mayor? Like, how does that work?
Great question. Because the thing that strikes me the most is. Our aldermen get paid $12,000 a year. The mayor gets paid I'm making $60,000 a year.
Okay.
And you get thrown into a situation like that, and then you're like, wait, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
But you did.
Kinda did.
You just didn't know you were.
Yes.
So you're dependent on all those around you. as well. That was different in my insurance agency. I just had a couple people, so you could kind of check in and make sure stuff's going. Now that's I'm in a situation where we've got over 100 employees.
Okay.
So when I say, Vincent, I need you to go do X, I just got to kind of trust you that you're going to go do it.
Okay.
And then we're going to have a problem if I get a phone call from the resident and says
You didn't do
X hadn't been done.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think from a perception standpoint, you obviously we've got the honeymoon going on still.
Okay.
And at some point we're going to start. I promise to do the easy stuff first. We're going to get into a situation though where we're going to start, and I see some of them on the horizon, where there's going to be issues that obviously we're going to make both sides a little mad, but we still got to do what we believe is the right thing to do.
Okay.
A couple issues that are going to come up very soon. One would be medical marijuana.
Okay.
That's an issue. We didn't sign up for that, but hey, here we are. So we'll be making those types of decisions, and you can hit it straight down the 300 yards straight down the fairway, and you're still going to get somebody to say, hey, you could hit it a little further, or whatever. But those are things that you sign up for that you may not have realized that you signed up for. But I think hustle and emphasizing customer service, and if you think about it, that's the background that I came from, running a small business.
You're treating it like a business.
It's nothing. It's second nature for me to pick up the phone and call somebody. Now, instead of calling them about their home and auto insurance, I'm calling them about a ditch that needs cleaned out, some debris that didn't get picked up.
Okay, so what you're saying is, and if I'm wrong, tell me, you're trying to take the focus off of the negative by doing so much of the positive that it just sort of overshadows that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's a move on situation, but
Okay.
it's also this that we start, and I think I would have done this anyway. We're going to hustle, we're going to customer service, and we want to put the emphasis back on the residents.
Okay.
Don't focus so much on your local government. We want to be a partner in how our city evolves.
Okay.
So I think that's important as well.
Okay, so how did you have you ever been approached by that the things that happened and that was said by the previous mayor? Like, what do you say to something?
I haven't really had that a
Okay.
lot.
Okay.
They really want their ditches and
Which is crazy because
yeah.
I find that to be the biggest thing. It's like, okay, I live here.
Yeah.
So this is different than, say, someone who's watching this on TV.
Yeah.
You're watching this on TV, you're seeing this narrative, but I have some garbage that needs to be picked up.
Yeah.
So, and not to say that those things aren't important. We all have to figure out, how those things work for each of us. But I think that giving, people the benefit of the doubt, especially when they come in, is very
People are
important.
a lot more forgiving than we probably give them credit for.
Yeah.
And I think, as like you and I are sitting down talking, I think
Yeah.
you can gain a lot by doing that.
Yes, you can.
Fortunately, I drink a lot of coffee, so that helps me.
Okay.
So, hey, if I'm going to meet somebody that wants to talk, well, I don't care if it's a
Let's go out for
representative
coffee.
or if it's, Representative Palazzo, whoever. Hey, let's meet at a coffee shop. Let's talk. Done that with lunches with Mayor Barker, things of that nature.
Yeah.
You obviously try to be available. So it does take a certain mentality from that standpoint, is that if you don't watch yourself, you can burn out pretty quick. I can see that. Now, I'm not even a year into this, but it was funny because my wife said, wow, you hadn't even been in office a year yet?
And it
I was
feels
like, yes,
like
I know that.
eternity.
Yeah, it only feels like 5 years, but
Yeah.
I do understand it. The previous mayor was in there 12 years. We had one other mayor that was 12 years. We've had some one-termers, two-termers. I mean, it just, mentally you've got to make that decision on whether I'm going to have the fire in the belly to finish the task.
Okay.
Once that goes away, I need to make sure I step aside. I've always believed that the office calls the person. There'll be a time where I'll have to make that decision as well.
Yeah.
I think our debt has set up in a manner to where it would take 2 terms to get us, some of the things that I want to accomplish.
You're looking at it from a logical perspective.
Yeah, so I'd say that, but I always will say if I had to choose today.
Yeah.
Because, I could win the lottery. And
That's
then
right. Okay.
the math gets scrambled when, when
exactly.
you do that.
So I've always heard this sort of term when it comes to Petal that, Petal kind of just takes care of itself in a way. So like when and excluding the previous mayors, stuff with that, what was your vision coming into this seat? Like, how are you going to put your stamp on this city?
It's funny, and I know I end up using the terminology, but I always I tell some of the girls around City Hall, I get nervous when somebody says vision because I hold on to my wallet. When they, I'm gonna dream, Vincent, with your money.
Oh yeah,
so,
okay.
But I know what the means, and I've used it.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's some things that we do want to accomplish. That town has changed so much. Until this point,
yes, it has a lot.
Petal is doing something that I haven't seen in other cities, it's the thought of hanging on to what made it Petal to begin with, and evolving with all of the new folks that are coming in.
Okay.
Usually, you either go one way or the other.
Okay.
You usually just hold on too hard to the old,
or you just completely break,
and then you don't even recognize the town when somebody comes and visits.
Yes.
But I'll tell you one thing. And I noticed this while I was campaigning. When you start knocking on doors in Petal, Mississippi, and you knock on doors from people that are from Washington State, Oregon, retirees. I mean, you knew the school was the draw by and large, but that's a unique thing. A lot of folks don't want to go down to the coast area, even though everybody loves it.
Yeah.
But you can access it because of the hurricanes.
Yeah.
You get too far north. The thought is, hey, you do have a lot of tornadoes, even though we've been hit by a couple in the last 10 years.
Yes, we have.
You do get a lot of those storms that go north of us.
Okay.
So when you start looking in a sweet spot, the Pine Belt is a great representation of that.
Okay. So when you look at Petal as you have Petal kind of Hattiesburg's right here, and then Laurel's kind of right there. Yeah. So what would you say is the identity of Petal? Like, what makes Petal Petal? And different from Hattiesburg or Wiggins or any of the Laurel, any of those places to you?
Yeah, well, I moved there in 1998, so obviously we made the decision. My wife and I went to Southern Miss, and so you're making that decision where we're going to move. And I just thought we've got more bang for our buck than going out to Oak Grove, which was really popping at that time. So we ended up over in Petal, and we loved it. Okay. Obviously, the school is a big draw. We're one of the safest cities. Actually got named back in February. Once again, as one of the safest cities in town. And some of those things don't happen on accident. The school's not number one. The police department's not doing its job by accident. So the city does have a role to play. Okay. I'm telling you, the Gandy Parkway has meant so much to. And now they've finished the outlet, the turn lanes and all the exchange out there on the Gandy on 59. Just it's going to really change what this town from a retail opportunity and things of that nature. And when you start talking about partnering with other people, we've got the area development partnership, and I've been to tons of things with them, and they've helped us and put me in front of people so we could sell our story. Okay. They've got a huge operation, FedEx, going on up at the airport it's actually up in Jones County. Okay. Where are those folks going to move when they move in? I mean, we're going to be the first town. If they're not from here, they're going to look at the school. They're going to say it's a town that's not too big. And if I want to go shopping over in Hattiesburg, I can easily end up over there. Okay. But it is a story. I know that sounds like it's us in competition with them, but I don't see it as that. Okay. Because as we get more retail, that just lets the whole pie grow. So now our people may move to Petal for the school, but they can do some shopping in Hattiesburg. We're getting more shopping opportunities as well. So I don't think it's like we've got to take stuff from Hattiesburg to come to us so we can be content.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Working together, because think about it. There's going to be the industrial park, Camp Shelby. Those things always benefit Petal when they're thriving. So we need the Pine Belt as a whole to be thriving, and we'll all benefit from that.
That's an interesting answer, because usually, and I've watched different politicians have gone to a lot of time, and they'll say, well, we want to bring that here, we want to keep the dollars here, and all that stuff. And so what you're saying, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying, okay, well, we can access all those things. We don't necessarily have to bring all of that 10 minutes like to here. We can just, share and be in good communication with everybody and just make it work for everyone.
And someone will see Petal for what it is, and they will see that, hey, folks can now get off 59 and get to Petal a lot easier. Yes. Hey, maybe we would like to have something unique in Petal.
Okay.
So that would be a great opportunity for folks that are in Hattiesburg, Ellisville, Laurel to come to Petal to shop. And we haven't really been able to have that discussion because for so long the Gandy Parkway was just an idea, and then it was a dirt road, and then it finally got to this point, and now it's taken that next step.
Now it's becoming a reality.
Yeah, so it's been a real game changer for us. Commissioner Tom King with MDOT has just been a big proponent of that, and I always think about in our positions, and I know some of the aldermen think this as well, the idea of the vision that those folks had to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And most of those folks aren't even here anymore. But we're benefiting from their foresight to do that.
Okay. So, politics is usually a hot button issue for a lot of people, but I find that, the local politics can be completely different in that manner. So what have you seen, or what do you think are the biggest differences from the local game versus the national game?
I think a lot of it is the ability to sit down and have a conversation.
Okay.
I think that helps. There are some instances, just from an outsider's observation, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that happen up in Washington, D.C. that are just terribly broken.
Oh my gosh.
And obviously is the size of it, and it continues to grow. I've seen a comment from a South Carolina representative. He's a first-termer, and boy, he campaigned. He's going to go up there and clean that place up.
Yeah.
We're going to fix this. And then they asked him 6 months in, what's your takeaway? And he said, the enormity of it.
A lot of moving parts.
So even on our level, I start thinking about moving the needle, handing off something a little bit better than what we had, understanding there's still going to be problems.
Okay.
But obviously the amount of money that flows through the national and state politics is so much more than what we've got.
Yeah.
I think some of the concepts are the same. We still have to work together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's probably a little bit more of a toe the line, especially we're a two-party country.
Yeah.
So if you need to toe the line, I need the water project, so I'm going to toe the line. You get into some of that.
Is there a lot of you talked a little bit, or you just said a little bit about that? That sort of thing where I don't want to go too hard here.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to be a little flexible over here, so that next time this is coming down the pipe. Does that type of stuff happen a lot?
It can.
Okay.
My background as alderman, and as just being in the insurance business, you obviously have to have tough conversations about claims.
Mm-hmm.
Going through Katrina, going through some of these, tornadoes, hey, it's not covered, or we didn't get the money we thought we could get for you.
Okay.
So you had tough conversations. So I think the way you phrase things means a lot.
Okay.
I could tell you the same thing two different ways, and you're going to have a different attitude.
Yeah.
Vincent, you're doing great with everything, and I just really like, if I could give you one suggestion, sounds a whole lot better about, hey, you got till 5 o'clock to get this junk done, or you're going to be out of a job.
Yeah.
Just,
there's a difference.
So the way you do it and treating people but at the same time, we have bad days too. So I try not to be that, and I know, understanding as being mayor, people do see me, in Walmart. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he keeps buying the robin's eggs. Well, it's Easter, folks. So I'm gonna keep.
People pay attention to what you buy.
The girls at City Hall always give me a hard time when I come in there and
okay.
Somebody better have some chocolate in here.
Yeah.
So, we try to have a good time. I think that's a thing. You get a lot of these jobs can be very stressful. And their positions can be really stressful.
I imagine. Yeah.
I just deal with 7 aldermen.
Okay.
And some department heads. Some of these folks deal with everybody in town, and they've got tough jobs. So I think it's important to have the right people in the right spots, but understand that, hey, they could have a bad day too.
Okay. So you talked about bad day. There are a lot of politicians that I've seen that do not like being asked the negative questions. So I'm going to ask you.
That's a good question. Yes.
What are some of the mistakes that you've made in your tenure right now? What are some of them you look back? So how long have you been in office?
Since 2009. So I was 12 years as an alderman. And there was a huge advantage from that, because you do bring your past experiences into this. I think there were some budget issues a couple years ago that we didn't handle, that I didn't handle very well.
Okay.
So, and so you watch that.
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, when you're dealing with people's livelihoods and their jobs as well, maybe you're a little too harsh.
Okay.
Because you get into a tight budget. The sin of being in a tight budget, there's a chance you get into a budget cycle and somebody might lose their job.
Yeah.
Because you've mismanaged the money, even if it's just a little bit. Now, circumstances may have dictated that, but some of my stupid spending could have as well. So I need to be cognizant of that when I make when I'm in yes mode. As an alderman, yes. The rubber's going to meet the road that next budget.
I got you.
So you gotta watch that. You're playing with people's livelihoods, and not only that, you're playing with the residents' livelihoods as well.
Okay.
We can't be all things to all people. There's a dollar figure on everything we do.
Okay.
So we just got to be smart about how we handle that, so we can continue to be efficient about how we deliver services to people. Understanding there might be some services we're either going to be late doing or we can't do.
Yeah. What are, like, so have you ever been, let's say, just dinner with the wife, someone comes up angry saying that, hey, you didn't do this? How do you handle that? Like, has there been, like, talk a little bit about an instance where that happened and how you handled it? And
I really haven't had a lot of that.
Okay.
My past experience, though, has been you get that at running a small business, and
Okay.
they call it, Vincent, that's just dealing with people.
yes.
And so you try to tone the circumstances down. You've
Okay.
had some people come in that were mad at you at first, and you start having a conversation with them.
Okay.
And understanding that, hey, they may be having a bad day too.
Yeah.
It may be me on the other end of that at some point. It's frustrating. I know you were kind of hinting around to the bad day question.
Yeah.
What does a bad day look like for Tony Ducker?
Yeah.
And it happens. Sometimes you miss out on your messaging.
Okay.
I was talking to WDAM earlier, and we were talking about beautification. The problem with continually talking and pushing beautification is that if you haven't had your road paved in 30 years, you don't give a rip about beautification. You don't give a rip about soccer fields and baseball fields. You need to make sure you're messaging it in a, we're going to do that too.
Okay.
We're going to pave. We're actually getting together paving streets right now. But we've got a lot of moving parts going on right now, so we want to take care of both.
Okay.
But you got to watch it too, because that gets back into the money thing.
So it's a great balance. You just got to balance a lot
yeah.
of things. Okay.
And don't get me wrong. If I came in here and talked to you for an hour about street paving and sewer,
Yeah.
well, what about the kids? We're at the soccer field. You
Yeah.
get
It's
both
a balance.
Of it. You get both
sometimes
of it.
you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
You can't get every solution done. But I guess what you try to get as much as you can before you leave office.
That's right.
And so what about? Let me ask you this: when you're going or driving through like Petal and you see different things that need to be done, what is the sort of mechanism to get that done? Like, what's the way in which that happens? Like, let's say there's a building that's messed up or something. Do you call the alderman first and be like, hey, I saw this, or do you just go, oh, well, I'll just put it on the list and get to it when I...
We communicate that to the department that it falls under, but that's a great question. Obviously, your eyes are doing this number whenever you're riding down the street. And, and the ideal situation, and we try to get this into our employees, that they can do that too. We want to have them out there looking at certain things. Hey, there's a manhole cover off of this area. There was a water leak at this other area. Those kind of things. We want to be proactive.
Yeah.
The sin of tight budgets is you become very reactive. We work off of a work order scenario. So you call in something and say, my debris didn't get picked up. We create a work order, and that's how we kind of track it to its end.
Right.
Problem is if that's all I'm doing is work orders all the time, I'm not being very proactive. What if I saw that pile of debris or I saw that water leak and I turned it in? Got around 100 employees. If we can get those folks turning those things in, now we're fixing that stuff before a resident ever had to call us. And that's, you're still going to get work orders and get phone calls. But that's, you want to have more of that. And our folks are coming around and doing a lot of that. So that's a good thing to see. But we want to continue to push that and be proactive on how we address our stuff.
Okay. So what's the difference in your mind from being like a politician to being a mayor? Like, or what's the difference?
It's a good question. The funny part is, you know, that first time anybody ever runs, I am not a politician.
Yeah.
And now I've kind of embraced it because of the connotation. What is it? We walk in the shoes of those that have come before us. Well, politicians don't have a good reputation. So anyway, this is a political office. So when I say I'm a politician, you know, I almost say it tongue in cheek, understanding that I don't know. I guess you get just as many laughs if you said public servant.
Yeah.
I'm public. Yeah, public. What is it? Public serve yourself. So anyway, you know, you bring a lot of that with you when you come into the position. But you know, you embrace it after a while.
Okay.
12 years is a long time. We've actually got one alderman that's served 20 years.
Okay. Wow.
So that's a long time.
Yeah, that is
a long time.
So you're first, and we're going back now, but your first, let's say, election as alderman, the very first time you're going on a ticket, you realize, okay, I'm going to try to do this. What were some of the things that went through your head, positive and negative? Because I talk to a lot of people who want to run, and sometimes they come in a little too confident and miss a lot. And then sometimes they come in a little too negative, and then they come back and they're like, wow, you know, if I had just done this, maybe I wasn't as far off as I thought. So looking back to when you first ran, what were some of the things that you had to sort of recognize and fix on the fly that you thought, you know, you did a good job, and some that you didn't?
Yeah, that's when you pass over the Rubicon.
Yeah.
It's tough when you get that. I remember the emotions that I did. You know, sweetie, we're going to have to move out of town if I get beat. This is the community saying they hate me. So that's one of the thoughts.
Okay. Wow, that's extreme.
But that is very motivating, though. So
okay.
I was like, okay, got to knock on the doors. I got to get in front of people. And I think I had an advantage. A lot of people like my wife.
Okay.
So
cool.
But you know, they kind of envision, you know, they might not know you, but they put a thought on you, what you are. And I get that as mayor, and you benefit a little bit from it to a certain degree. They thought he's running a small business. We need business like people running our
people.
So you know, you get the advantage of that. And then I talked to him the other day, and he sounded like he had a little sense about himself.
Okay.
So you get a little you get a lot of advantage from that. But it is terrifying when you hand your paperwork and you're in.
Yeah.
You can't go. I guess you could go get your paperwork back, but you're in. You got to win then.
And that's
what
moment.
you think. And I've been fortunate to do that. So even when we were going to run for mayor, you kind of ramp it up.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to have a lot of volunteers. So when we would go knock on doors, you put 10 or 12 people out there knocking on doors. It was enough to where we could blitz an area, where I didn't literally have to say, okay, I got to choose, or what they call canvassing. You know, if you're canvassing, I'm going to see if Vincent's voted in the last few elections. Okay, he didn't vote in the governor's or the presidential election. Not knocking on Vincent's door. He's wasting my time. I'm going to go to the next guy. He's voted in this, you know, that kind of stuff.
So there's a strategy to
you have to,
okay.
but it's from a time standpoint you're trying to do that. And you have to if it's just you or a couple people out there. Fortunately, we had enough people that was able to get out there and get our message out there.
Okay.
And the message was that there is a way forward for us. And the idea of we're going to have more resources financially. And I'll give you one example of that. We had three things that have happened since I took office that have absolutely nothing to do with me. One is the state is now giving, you know how everybody buys stuff from Amazon?
Yes.
Now we get internet sales tax money, and we can use that to pave roads. So we went from zero, say 2 or 3 years ago, to $600,000 to $800,000 a year. Now you got to realize, in my 12 years as alderman, one time we spent $1 million paving roads.
Okay.
We're fixing to get into an area where we can almost do that every year. So that's a big deal.
That's good.
There was reassessment on people's properties, so that was around $700,000, and then we passed a 3% restaurant. So we're getting monies from that as well, and it was one of the hopes. And when the budgets were tight. So when we first went into the 3%, similar to what Hattiesburg has.
Yeah.
The idea is we wanted to quit having our recreation department be a football.
Okay.
and kick it around and all that. I guess I could say soccer ball as well, but
Yeah.
kick it around and have some stability over there.
Okay.
So we're going to get $700,000 to $800,000 from that. So that'll sustain that department. Now it also allows us to free up money that we had been spending over there.
Okay.
So that's a benefit as well. So the resources, and you say, man, that is great news. That is awesome.
That sounds
you,
great.
You
Yeah.
went from tight budgets to now you're telling me there's some money out there, but man, you really feel the pressure from that.
Yeah, one false,
What
one bad move,
Yeah,
budget wise,
and it's just enough money. We talked earlier. It's just enough money to get into trouble too.
Okay.
So sometimes I've said that no, when it comes to government, is a beautiful word, and so we don't need to lose the ability to say no to things that aren't, things I guess that are going to get us back into the situations we just got out of.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's so you decide to run, your first time out, and a lot of some politicians like it, but I've heard other politicians are just like, I just wish I could skip this part of it sometimes, the debate, because you never really know what the other person is gonna come at you with, and Petal being a small town and people knowing everything, you never kind of know, you're kind of on edge. Like, did your first, couple time out, were you really like nervous when it came to that part, or did you just kind of go, look, man, it is what it is, I don't care?
the last time we did it, when we were doing it for the mayor's race,
Yeah.
there was 4 of us running. So
Okay.
they just allowed us on stage. So obviously there was plenty of time to get several questions.
Yeah.
The first time they put us all up there, there was a busload of us up
Yeah.
there. So you might have gotten just like a little blip to say.
Okay.
So you weren't nervous when you sat down, but then they started on that end down there, and
You're just
30 minutes later, you're like, oh my
half
Lord,
asleep.
I had something prepared to say, and
Yeah.
now I'm no good. But I had, oddly enough, coming with my background from insurance, you felt
Okay.
comfortable talking to people. My degree from Southern Miss is actually broadcast journalism.
Oh, okay. So you
that-
were in your wheelhouse.
That's good. But you do got to figure out, because once again, just you're sitting at the. I mean, you've done it. I've done it.
Yeah.
You sit there and nobody said anything, but you've already kind of got an idea about that person in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't even said nothing. What are you doing?
Yeah,
But that's just human nature. Like,
Uh-huh.
okay. So you hope you're able to reinforce a good thought about you. And one of the statements I said, and it's funny, I can can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can tell you one of the lines that I said, and my dad used to always say this, was if you can talk real good, you'll never have to work a day in your life. And you did.
Dad was a smart man.
So then my phrase was, and I've been working ever since I can remember.
Okay,
So, hey,
nice. That's good. Yeah.
So,
Some of it is playing to the crowd. Some
Yeah.
of it's slogans
It is.
and saying things. But
it is.
I you run into those people who they do a little bit much, and you kind of go, ugh, like you kind of cringe.
Oh
you know?
yeah. Public speaking, it can be tough.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the thought's always in your mind.
Yeah.
I just got to get it down here.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably run into it. You're going to do this podcast, and somebody's going to notice you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have a thought about you, and you will have never talked to them except
Yeah.
that time you bump into them.
Yeah.
So they do a lot
That
of that.
guy's horrible. I don't like him.
What is he
But
doing?
you've never met him. I don't like his podcast.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, don't you go to church with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still don't like him.
Hey man, it is what it is. As long as Jesus is good,
There
I'm
we
good
go.
with me. I'm
That's
good.
right.
So let's. How about? Have you ever had a question that someone has sort of posed to you, whether it be on the debate stage, whether it be on a call, or just out somewhere, where you've just been like taken aback, like, oh, geez, like, okay, how do I handle this one?
You do try to forethink of a bunch, and I think of a lot
Okay.
of questions but yeah, you're sitting at the debate table, and you're like, man, I hope they didn't talk to any of my high school teachers. So you drag that, and you realize that we're fallen humans, and but you do, the thought does, like, oh Lord, what are they going to ask?
You sort of take a catalog of everything that you've done wrong.
Here's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you don't want to get caught flat-footed. You do when you get I was talking with Channel 7 earlier today, and they asked something was totally different than what we were. Hey, let me ask you this one. I got you.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it kind of caught me off guard, and I feel very comfortable because it's out there in the public domain about the medical marijuana.
Yeah.
Now,
Okay, let's talk about
did
that.
I ever think I would talk about medical marijuana?
Yeah.
As mayor or alderman? didn't. But as I
But
say,
here we
it's
are.
2022. Here we are.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So, medical marijuana. There was a vote that came down the pipe, and we know, those of us who are listening know how that went. So, what's your take? Before I give you my take, I want to know, what's your take on what happened, and what's your take on what's sort of happening now? Like the conversation is starting to shift.
Yeah.
So, where do you stand on all of that?
I think when it's all said and done,
Yeah.
we've got another meeting. So we've kind of intentionally waited to, there's a May 3rd deadline.
Okay.
So we've intentionally waited till closer to that time.
Yeah.
I think that Petal will allow it in. I
Okay.
say allow it, which means to do nothing.
Okay.
Because you actually have to have a vote. And I have seen some that would have voted to approve it, but you're not really approving it. It's just basically saying it. Now, I wanted to wait closer to the May 3rd deadline, because at any point, any of the 8 of us, 7 aldermen and myself, could throw it on an agenda and say, okay, we want to opt out.
Okay.
The downside of opting out is you're going to have a lot of marijuana interest. Because we're saying that a lot of marijuana interests are going to throw a bunch of money into getting it overturned. And then, for instance, the city of Petal would have to pay for an election if they get the required signatures, and then they could overturn it. Now, in general, I understand what's going on, and I think we spend a bunch of money incarcerating people when it comes to drugs in general.
Yeah.
And then we've also got the problem of the pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
So we've probably got a bigger problem than we want to admit that we've got.
Okay.
But at the same time, if I was sitting here, if I was in my doctor's office right now, and he gave me some news I don't want to hear, I'm open to do anything to make it better. And so it's not I've said it before jokingly, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's not one of my vices.
Yeah.
But
I just kind of, I look at it, and you say, oh, well, he's younger or whatever, but I just don't see it.
See, I knew it was going to happen. The younger generation.
Big deal,
Yeah.
it's just like whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's medical, so it's
Yeah.
we're not even talking about like recreational use.
Yeah.
So if, someone, has glaucoma, someone who has, cancer, and it makes them feel a little better about what's going on, it's a big deal, and I understand that, there are people who have the opposite view. And that's why I love about, being in America. It's like, okay, well, at least for now, like you could have a different opinion than the person that sits across from you, and it's not really that big a deal.
There's parts too of the state law that I really liked.
Yeah.
And until they let me run everything myself, it won't ever be a perfect bill or a perfect ordinance.
Yeah.
But there were some parts, and there's some parts I didn't really like about it.
Okay.
But there were some parts that I thought, okay, that makes sense. And I don't think from the distances from certain things that they have that you're going to see a place like Petal just get overran. Well, that being said, like I said before, now in May 3rd, somebody, I don't feel like we will, just shooting you straight there, and then there are my thoughts out there as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just, and this has been a thing or a conversation that we've been talking about in this country forever, and now it's come down to the states and all of that. I just, at the end of the day, if people, want to do that type of thing, and you can get it to the point where it's not affecting, the person beside them or, whatever, I don't seriously see it as a big deal. But again, there are other factors to consider. And that's why I'm not a politician.
I told somebody, I said, I do understand that, because I was concerned because we didn't know what the actual legislation was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some concerns of what it was going to be when it finally came down. So, and the biggest thing you could tell this guy was that we're going to know a whole lot more next year.
Okay.
Whether you opt in or opt out, the state of Mississippi will know a lot more next year than they do now, because we will have been a year into it.
What was and correct me if I'm wrong, so the state voted for it, and then it was repealed by, what?
No, what happened was there was a technicality. When the signature, I forgot the actual terminology, but when you had to get an X amount of signatures, it noted that there were 5 congressional districts. Well, you know, there's only 4 congressional districts now. So a mayor in central Mississippi said, wait, that's not right. So it ended up going to courts and getting thrown out.
Okay.
Now, what you're going to probably see is our legislature is going to go back into session to try to fix that and say, okay, let's change it from 5 to 4, and then it could go in. But by and large, this area voted in favor of that, whether it was just a protest vote or what.
Or they actually felt that way, yeah.
And it's something that, and to tell you what a hot button issue it is, the legislature could have handled this at any time prior to getting all the signatures.
Really?
So, yeah, they could have just taken it up and said, hey, here's what we're going to let it be. Because the signatures basically, I guess, made them realize that, hey, there's a lot of folks that support this. And I know they've had folks that have had family members that have passed away from cancer. They get in a period where you have some kind of illness that keeps you from eating. This is supposed to help.
Help a lot, And that's the thing, medical.
Yeah.
You know, like, so it's not just, we're just out here just doing whatever we want. And so, when it came down for me, I was like, well, yeah, that'll pay. Like, it's medical. It's not a record. And then it did it, and, but I'm glad that you sort of cleared that up as far as, like, the technicality and what actually, because there are some people that would be like, oh, well, they just didn't want it, or, and that's one of the things that I've found with politics, the more you look in. Sometimes there are these sort of technicalities that stop things that you thought, well, they just didn't want it. And I think, the more you look into it and the more you see how complicated this process really is to pass law. Like,
I mean, you're both for something,
exactly.
But I just don't like the way. And that's one of the arguments they're having right now is they say, hey, okay, we'll change 5 to 4, but I want to change the amount of signatures you got. But you may say, no, I think I'm very good. So that could be, like, we're both for changing it, but we don't agree with the actual details.
Yeah, and that's where, and I guess, when you're talking about, and we talk about this a little bit, local, there's not that much, emphasis on, like how the media, the national media will play into it. So you kind of, get to the point where, all right, we can actually maybe discuss this like adults. But when you get to the national side, it's just all over the place. And so, has the media, how big a role does the media play, local media play in, this type of stuff? Like,
I think on the national stage, the media has by and large become cheerleaders for one side or the other.
Yes.
And I think that loses a lot of confidence. Obviously, I work very well with all the local folks, understanding that they're one of our first avenues to get information out to people.
Okay.
It's different in this regard. Before I got interviewed this morning by Channel 7, that wasn't going to air till this evening. I could have went live on Facebook and got a message out.
Okay.
So that's a little bit different.
It is.
Now you've got everybody's got a camera. So that's another. I don't know how.
Has anyone ever caught you like just
hey,
Mayor Tony, I want to ask you about.
It's 3:00 and he's fishing. Nah, we hadn't. I haven't done that. There's no great.
You haven't
place
done
to
anything.
fish. But anyway.
So there's never been one of those gotcha moments.
Understand? I don't have an 8 to 5 job.
Okay. All right. Cool.
But yeah, I haven't. But you have seen it in other places.
Yes, I have, and it's.
I won't tell no stories because then folks will go start looking for the video. But anyway, yeah, you do see that.
Okay.
But it's part of the job. I think it has the reverse reaction to what folks think they're accomplishing. They think in some instances they're destroying the person, making them unelectable, etc. But a lot of times they're making all the people that would be better at my job, which are plenty over in Petal, they're making them think,
not want the hassle.
I am smart enough. I know one thing.
There's
a lot of things I want to do, but I ain't do because then they'll do that to me. So there's that out there as well.
There are so many people that have said what you said. You ask them like, well, why don't you do it? And they're like, there's no way. I've
mentioned it to people that I thought would be good when there's open seats. Hey, you ever thought about running? And the terrified look in their face, they're like, are you out of your mind?
Yeah. That's good. So what's the single biggest, I guess, motivator for you to stay in this political sphere? Like,
there is a part of me, and you start thinking, what is it? The way things have been aren't necessarily the way they're always going to be.
okay.
And that's what I always thought it was kind of neat, the way Petal seems to be hanging on to what makes it Petal, and also branching out into the.
Yeah, I think that's unique too.
I think
cool.
that's a fantastic thing. What keeps me motivated is the part that I can play in that. We have a role in all of that.
Okay.
But I don't want to be the central issue. Your local government shouldn't be the central thing that's happening in your town. It should be your school. It should be your churches. It should be your residents.
Okay.
So I'm really driven by that part of it. But you do have to watch out, because if you become a problem solver, you start throwing money at a lot of stuff. And I don't care what it is, Vincent, I'm just going to try to solve the problem and move on. Well, maybe it's a problem we shouldn't solve, that we're stepping out of our bounds and keeping private entities. I'm putting your business out of business because I can throw more resources at it, so then you're just going to be, tough luck.
Gotcha.
So you got to keep that in mind as well. But I have a great passion for the idea of leaving the city of Petal better than what I found it.
Okay.
We've got a lot of resources are coming in that the previous folks didn't have, that we can hold the line on some of the cost that it takes to live in Petal,
Okay.
and still move the ball down the field. And I think that's a pretty important thing.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. I want to thank you for coming on. This has been, you really sort of gave us a lot of stuff and just how
Nobody will ever get into
work.
politics going forward.
Well, hey,
I listen to that guy.
It's like, no, he said.
Or no, they'll probably say, if that guy can do it,
maybe I can
maybe
too. You never know. You never
maybe
know.
I can too.
I want to thank you for coming on. Now, I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you want to say? Anything's coming up that you want to put out for
A
people?
couple good things coming up. The city of Petal, we're moving. We've got some food truck regulations and stuff that we're looking into right now to just try to.
Nice.
It's
Street
a thing.
tacos.
It's a thing now, so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can't close our eyes to it. We
Mhm.
want it to have a vibrant. It might be a location that we want.
Yeah.
Downtown's having some of a renaissance. I know a lot of folks will drop. Oh, that downtown needs to come back.
Yeah.
My insurance agency was downtown for 20 years. Come on down, Will, and you can come hang out with me. So
Nice.
I think that's a big thing.
Okay.
I've always thought we were a sports-minded and very athletic type town.
Yes,
So
I agree with that.
I'm appalled by the amount of events we have. You're seeing more of those. Our signature event is the Petal Children's Task Force 5K every February.
Okay.
And the task force does great work for the needy in our town.
Okay.
And so I want to have more of those type of events. First part of May, I always said April we were going to have a lot of announcements, and we have. Everything from, it was actually in March, but we're actually going to get a Chick-fil-A. And I know some folks would, but that's a big deal to us.
Yeah,
that's
well,
a big
yeah.
deal to us. And I do think we need to get past the stage of where we're just Petal, or it's just where Petal's always going to be Petal.
Okay.
Well, who knows? In 15, 20 years, maybe we're not. I ain't talking about swinging for the fence on everything, but we've got a lot more going for us than folks, some of our own residents even think. So I would just encourage them to hang tight. Good things are coming to our town, and if your local government does not screw it up, we'll be great. But I do want to have more athletic type events, unique type events. We're going to announce something in the first part of May. We've actually got some of the stuff put on Facebook now, but we haven't really commented on it.
Okay. Okay.
And this will be the first place I've actually verbalized it. And it'll be an ultra race, a 6-hour race, and coming up in October. I think October 29th.
Okay.
But there's things
Sounds
like
cool.
color runs, but I would like to have it organized where the city can help promote it. Things of that nature, like the task force. The JCs have done some great 5Ks.
Okay.
But we would like to be more active from that standpoint. We've got some projects coming on from a Matthews branch, which is a creek drainage area for us.
Okay.
That will ultimately, might be several years from now, we would like to see it connect to the old bridge when the new bridge gets built.
All right.
So the thought process would be that you can connect the city of Petal with the city of Prentice via the rails to trails.
That's unique. Yeah.
That being said, let's go back and look at what I said earlier. We're going to still pave roads, we're going to fix sewer pipes, and we're
Very
going to do
important.
water
Very
projects as
important.
well.
There
So
you go.
if you hate bicycles and not, we're going to try to do something for that too. And that's a big
Okay.
important thing. If you hadn't had your road paved in a long time, I mean, it's
Please
about
pave
time,
it.
about
Yes.
time. If you
Yeah.
can't, if you can't do it this year, tell me when. So we're going to be very proactive when it comes to that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking time and coming on, Mayor Tony. I really enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe. I didn't say that. I don't want to be that guy, but I'm that guy now. So you just got to do it. And once again, guys, thanks for all the support. And we'll be back next week with